And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Well, Saturday starts off with a lot of IFR here over the Bering Sea, right into the western interior, and even farther east up here along and south of the Brooks Range. IFR for the Arctic coast. IFR up into Cook Inlet, Kodiak Island, southern coast of the Kenai Peninsula, and on up into the Susitna Valley along the Alaska Range, with VFR holding here over the east side, and mostly VFR for the southeast coast. And for the afternoon, VFR across the Panhandle, IFR now off the coast in the Gulf of Alaska. IFR, though, still lingering over the Susitna Valley, over toward Denali Park, and at least ways down the western Alaska Range. And mostly IFR here over the northwest part of the state, out to the, well, actually the Koyukuk Valley, all the way out to the Seward Peninsula. All of the Bering Sea forecast to be IFR, as well as the Aleutians. And for Sunday morning, not a lot of difference. Marginal VFR in the central interior, staying VFR here over toward the east, over toward the border. Brooks Range to the Arctic Ocean, IFR. Bering Sea stays IFR. All of the Aleutians. And Alaska Peninsula could be marginal, but still south side IFR right up into southern Shelikof Strait. Akiak, Sitkinak Island, and the east side of Kodiak, IFR. Marginal VFR here, south central Alaska. And marginal VFR into at least a portion of the western Copper River Basin areas. And then for the afternoon, some improvement here, especially back to the northwest there, with VFR breaking out for the Seward Peninsula, Kotzebue, Selawik into the Kobuk Valley, western Brooks Range, western North Slope. A lot of marginal VFR in the central interior, all the way up to the eastern Brooks Range and North Slope. IFR here for the Gulf of Alaska. Not much change out over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. Inside waters of the Panhandle stay VFR. Passes. Look for IFR conditions for the Brooks Range tomorrow, especially for Anatuvik and Adigan on either approach. Lake Clark and Merrill, IFR trending toward marginal VFR throughout the afternoon hours. Same forecast for rainy. And for windy, marginal VFR. Isabel, occasionally marginal. Mentasta, marginal VFR, becoming VFR. And for the Tanita Pass, marginal VFR at times. Portage, looks pretty marginal there. Chilcoot and White, VFR. Freezing levels here about 6,000 to 8,000 feet, or about 8,000 to 10,000 feet over the east side. A little bit cooler back here, roughly about 6,000 feet over the Seward Peninsula northward. 2,000 feet right along the central Arctic coast. Things warm up as you head south here and southwest over the Bering Sea. 12 to 14,000 feet out in that area. Icing, quite an area of considerable moderate rime icing coming in here into the, one band here pushing eastward, and a more solid area up here from the eastern Arctic coast westward there to about Ambler or so, and down along and south of the mid-Yukon River area, as well as for south central Alaska. And from there, looking at the jet stream, southwest flow, actually a trough right through this area, southwest flow up to 100 knots there, blowing across the northeast part of the state. And behind the trough, we've got northerly winds up to 85 knots there for the eastern Bering Sea. 9,000 feet, west-northwest 40 knots there across the Seward Peninsula and Norton Sound. Turn west-southwest up to 65 knots up over the northeast part of the state here. About 40 knots for Prince William Sound, and some 40-knot winds coming up and over the top of this ridge there that's centered just south of the west-central Aleutians. Otherwise, the southeast coast, light northwest winds there, not too bad, maybe 20 to 30 knots or so at 9,000 feet. 3,000 feet, 30-knot winds right along the south coast of the Panhandle, otherwise much lighter over the inside waters. And southwest winds cutting through the central interior, actually west here, and then becoming southwest, anywhere from 30 to 40 knots. 40-knot winds, real narrow band here coming up Cook Inlet tomorrow, supporting some small craft advisory, 30-knot winds there in the marine areas of the inlet. Otherwise out to the west, not too bad, 45 knots here for 3,000 feet coming in the far western Aleutians with that next system. Turbulence-wise, considerable moderate turbulence here. Alaska range up across the Fairbanks area there in the Nana Fairbanks on up towards Old Crow there in Canada.